Witcher, 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 there's fish people drowning our sheep in the river!
Sounds like drowners. Gonna need spicy mayo.
Okay.
Oil my blade. Witcher magic for every occasion. Killing monsters is what I do.
Okay, can you hurry?
Witcher! A vampire ate my mom!
A Dracula needs garlic butter.
And I guess bringing in a new White Wolf at this point in the season, a bold move and a tall order for Liam.
And of course, he wanted to honor the character that had already been set up, because he knows that he's stepping into a role. But at the same time, he wanted to make sure that his performance was authentic, that it felt like him, that he wasn't playing and mimicking anything.
Apparently, The Witcher 4 is, well, you know, so bad it got cooked. It did. It got completely cooked. It's totally dead.
Siri,
Siri, are you here?
I'm the most annoying guy on set because I'm saying, excuse me, you do realize that this should be happening and they wouldn't do that, and you haven't read this, that means this would be impossible. And everyone's just going, Henry, just shut up and do the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do the thing because he wouldn't do it this way, and he can do it.
The Witcher was supposed to be 7 seasons, but it was abruptly cut down to 5 after Henry Cavill left, and Lauren Hissrich is lucky she got that. But she does say, are there more stories? Maybe. Well, actually, there's a lot because you skipped them, but this one has to end at this point. So I think it's a nice time for all of us to step back a little bit. And that probably has a lot to do with the audience stepping back a long time ago.
I have myself and my team out making great content and acquiring great content, but if 1 out of 10 times you push play it didn't work, we'd be toast.
But
now
I think that's just so unfair to the guy. Are we really gonna blame everything and scapegoat this guy? Well, think about it. If the show was so great, why did the first guy leave? It's so unfair.
Promote this thing until a month before it came out. They knew that switching from like Henry Cavill to Liam Hemsworth, as downhill as the franchise has gone, everybody knew that even they knew it'd be shit.
Back in 2019, it was and there were more than a few outlets and fans.
I don't know why Netflix would have even continued with it, because like it's only going to damage their brand and make them look bad. Like you probably should be paying money to not have it shown.
Saying that possible, actually releasing the show. And let's just
I don't know why they released it. They should have just canceled it. That's fine. But what I'm saying is that a lot of people obviously don't like this type of content.
I can make whatever I want. I've got him on a farm milking people. I'm gonna send him to the ladies with the red bonnets on. Because everyone can have their version. Everyone shouldn't. Everyone doesn't matter enough to have their version. What matters is the millions upon millions of people which have bought the games, and they deserve to be represented. Lauren doesn't. Lauren's irrelevant. I'm not sure why Lauren's the showrunner. She already scared off the best asset that the series has. Getting rid of Henry Cavill and keeping Lauren would be like losing a Wagyu steak and having it replaced with a carrot. I mean, sure, both
agree with the responsibility of that lays at the feet of one woman. The aforementioned Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, who has finally gotten everything she wanted, complete control of an epic fantasy series on Netflix without the shackles of Henry Cavill. And how did it turn out? Well, about as bad as you would expect. It's time to talk about...
Henry Cavill just did what every fan wished they could. He faced down Netflix. For months, rumors have swirled about tension behind the scenes of The Witcher, but what just happened turned that quiet speculation into a cultural earthquake. A single South Park episode, meant as comedy, cracked open one of Hollywood's biggest secrets. Fans laughed at first, then realized they weren't just watching satire, they were watching a mirror. Because behind the jokes was a story about control, creativity, and one actor who refused to play along. And the way Cavill handled it didn't just silence a room full of executives, it might have changed the way studios treat fans forever. When South Park released its now infamous parody of The Witcher,
Witcher, a ghoul,
Sesame glaze,
Bear Man,
honey mustard,
werewolf,
honey mustard,
no,
honey mustard,
thieving,
lemon pepper,
Rat Boy,
honey mustard.
Witcher, we's catching snails.
That would be French onion.
Witcher, a ghoul,
Sesame glaze.
nobody expected it to sting this badly. The episode painted Netflix as the ultimate content machine, cranking out lifeless reboots that ignored everything fans loved. Viewers laughed at the exaggerated writer's room, filled with execs who'd clearly never read the books, but the laughter quickly turned into collective agreement.
My job? Kill monsters. Get coin. Use coin on McDonald's app. Get points. Use points to get free McChicken. Only 1,500 points. Every dollar spent is 100 points. Constant BOGOs. I always leave with a free McChicken. It's like I'm stealing from them.
Stealing? You're a thief. Lemon pepper!
Social media lit up overnight. They just said what we've all been thinking. Memes flooded timelines, blending Geralt's brooding stare with South Park's merciless punchlines. For the first time, mainstream comedy called out a corporate creative crisis, and it hit too close to home. Within days, the Witcher subreddit and Twitter were flooded with old clips of Henry Cavill defending the show's lore. Hashtags like Bring Back Cavill and Respect the Source began trending again. But while fans were shouting, Cavill was silent. No statements, no reactions, just stillness. And that silence made people listen harder. Then, whispers began circulating online, a private dinner in London where Cavill supposedly told a group of producers, "Sometimes truth comes from parody." Nobody knew if it was real, but the quote spread like wildfire. Suddenly, it wasn't just a meme war, it was a question of integrity. And what came next would turn speculation into confrontation. Insiders say it happened quietly. No press, no announcement, just a closed-door meeting in a dimly lit conference room at Netflix's London office. On one side of the table sat executives and producers, on the other, Henry Cavill, calm, polite, but unmistakably firm. There was no shouting, no drama, just a silence so sharp that every breath sounded loud. The South Park parody had gone viral, and even within Netflix, people were whispering that maybe, just maybe, the show's biggest critic wasn't the internet, it was the man who once was Geralt. The meeting began with routine formalities, but everyone in the room knew why they were there. The parody had reignited old wounds. Questions about creative direction, once brushed off as fan noise, had suddenly become unavoidable. One exec tried to break the tension with humor, joking about the power of memes. Cavill didn't laugh. Instead, he reportedly leaned forward, looked directly at the room, and said something that froze the air. The memes aren't the problem. The truth behind them is. According to one insider, Cavill spoke slowly, deliberately, not as a celebrity defending his ego, but as a storyteller defending a legacy. He reminded them that The Witcher wasn't built in a boardroom. It was born in the imagination of a writer who respected myth, morality, and consequence. Fans didn't want a modernized reinvention. They wanted Geralt. They wanted the world that once made them believe monsters weren't always the worst thing out there. He then reportedly delivered the line that would echo across every fan forum for months. "You didn't broaden the audience. You lost the one that mattered." No one interrupted him. He wasn't angry, he was disappointed, and that somehow hit harder. Sources claim that the executives tried to pivot, saying the creative team had aimed to make the show more accessible for new audiences. Cavill countered that accessibility wasn't the issue, authenticity was. He cited his own experiences at fan conventions where people thanked him not for the action scenes, but for his respect toward the lore. He reminded them that these weren't just viewers, they were the reason The Witcher existed at all. Then came the final blow. Calm, honest, impossible to argue with. You can spend millions trying to buy passion, but once fans stop believing you care, the money stops mattering. According to reports, the room went silent. One producer tried to assure him that the team had the best intentions. Cavill smiled politely, stood, and said, "Intentions don't tell stories, writers do." And with that, he thanked them for the meeting and left. Nobody leaked photos, but within hours, whispers of what happened began surfacing online. Anonymous Reddit posts described a private clash between Cavill and Netflix. Industry Twitter accounts hinted at a conversation that changed tone forever. Fans didn't know if it was true, but they didn't need to. It felt true. It aligned perfectly with the Cavill they admired, composed, grounded, and unwilling to compromise on integrity.
By the end of that week, screenshots of his alleged quotes had spread across every fandom space. Hashtags like the Cavill stand and for the lore trended globally. To the public, this wasn't just a workplace disagreement. It was a symbolic moment, a quiet rebellion against a system that had forgotten why stories mattered. Cavill hadn't shouted, threatened, or stormed out. He'd simply said what fans had been screaming for years, and done it with more impact than any viral tweet ever could. And as the headlines began multiplying, one question echoed across the internet. If South Park exposed the problem, had Henry Cavill just exposed the truth? What started as online chatter exploded into full-scale rebellion. Fans canceled subscriptions in protest. Comment sections under official Netflix trailers turned into open forums of frustration. Phrases like "Cavill was right" became rallying cries. Inside the company, anonymous reports suggested frantic emergency meetings. Public relations teams drafted statements that never saw daylight, while investors quietly questioned whether The Witcher could even survive Season 4. Through it all, Cavill said nothing. No tweets, no interviews, and somehow that silence hit louder than any official response. But the real twist? His quiet dignity wasn't just winning sympathy, it was changing the narrative completely. As the storm around The Witcher kept building, Henry Cavill's silence became louder than any statement could have been. While executives scrambled and PR teams tried to spin the narrative, Cavill didn't post a single word online. No Instagram hints, no interviews, no cryptic quotes. Just silence. But the internet started to interpret that silence as something bigger. Purpose. People began to realize that Cavill wasn't ignoring the noise. He was choosing not to add to it. And that restraint became his power. Clips from old interviews suddenly began resurfacing everywhere. Tiny moments that had once gone unnoticed now felt prophetic. In one, Cavill gently corrected a journalist who called The Witcher a Netflix franchise, saying, "It's actually Andrzej Sapkowski's world first, we're just visiting." In another, he talked about the responsibility of adapting a beloved story. When you take someone's legend and put it on screen, you owe them more than entertainment, you owe them respect. Those lines, once casual, now hit like revelations. Fans started calling it the Cavill Code, a philosophy that creative passion should never bow to corporate convenience. Within days, YouTube compilations appeared titled "Henry Cavill Predicted Everything." Millions watched. Comments poured in from fans, gamers, and even writers who said Cavill's respect for the material reminded them why they fell in love with storytelling in the first place. He became the internet's quiet moral compass in a noisy industry. One viral tweet summed it up perfectly. Cavill didn't lose The Witcher lost Cavill. But what really struck people was the contrast between Cavill's calm integrity and the chaos surrounding him. While Hollywood was busy chasing algorithms and reboots, here was an A-list star who still built his own gaming PC and debated lore accuracy on fan forums. That authenticity made him untouchable. He wasn't acting like he cared, he actually did. Industry insiders started noticing too. Writers and producers began referencing the Cavill Code in private conversations, half jokingly but half seriously, using it to describe projects that respected their audience. A few even admitted that Cavill's approach had reignited something in them, that sense of purpose Hollywood often strips away in the chase for metrics and mass appeal. In a strange way, his silence had started a quiet revolution. Meanwhile, fans transformed that energy into a movement. The #RespectTheLore hashtag became a cultural mantra. It wasn't just about The Witcher anymore, it was about every beloved story that had been twisted to fit modern trends. Cavill's example gave people permission to expect better, to demand sincerity from creators who handled the stories they loved. Then came the fan edits. Powerful, cinematic montages blending Cavill's quotes with scenes from The Witcher set to haunting music. Millions watched, millions shared. People who had never even seen the show found themselves captivated by the principle behind it. The idea that sometimes walking away isn't losing. It's choosing integrity over comfort. The story stopped being about The Witcher and became something universal. The courage to stay true when compromise would be easier. And that's what made the Cavill Code legendary. It wasn't a rule book, it was a mindset, a quiet resistance against creative decay. Cavill didn't demand anyone follow him, but millions did anyway. Because in an era of endless noise, his silence spoke volumes. By the time he finally appeared again in public, smiling, grounded, unbothered, Fans already knew what he stood for. He didn't need to say a word. The message was clear. You don't have to fight to prove your worth. You just have to stand for what's right, even if you stand alone. And that's what the Cavill Code became. Not a scandal, not a trend, but a movement. A reminder that respect never goes out of style, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in a world full of noise is to remain silent.
Then came the Storytelling Summit in Los Angeles. Cavill, on stage for the first time since leaving The Witcher, was asked about South Park's parody. He smiled, that calm, knowing smile, and said, "Comedy only hits hard when there's truth behind it." The crowd went silent. It wasn't bitterness, it was reflection. He didn't name names or assign blame, but everyone knew exactly what he meant. For years, fans had watched Hollywood mock its own audiences, turning beloved stories into marketing experiments. Now, one of its biggest stars was subtly calling it out, not with anger but with grace. And suddenly, people weren't laughing anymore. They were listening. Behind the scenes, something shifted. Netflix quietly began adjusting its public tone. Insiders claimed that rewrites were ordered for upcoming fantasy projects, this time with greater respect for source material. Executives stopped joking about creative freedom and started talking about audience trust. The South Park episode had cracked the shell, but Cavill's silence had broken it open. Meanwhile, fans who once trolled the franchise turned into evangelists for authentic storytelling. Even competitors in the streaming world reportedly took notes, wondering if they'd been underestimating fan loyalty all along. And just when everyone thought the story had ended, rumors started circulating about Cavill's next big move. As the dust settled, the question that echoed across Hollywood wasn't, why did Henry Cavill leave? It was, what will he do next? Rumors began swirling about secret meetings, new scripts, and a personal dream project that had been years in the making. Insiders hinted at something called The Last Kingdoms, a fantasy saga that Cavill himself had supposedly been shaping behind the scenes, not as an actor for hire, but as a creative force with full control. No studio interference, no compromise, just story, passion, and respect. For fans, the idea felt poetic. After walking away from a corporate-controlled universe, Cavill was rumored to be building one of his own, a world where writers, artists, and fans could actually collaborate instead of clash. Reddit threads exploded with theories about what the Last Kingdoms might be, part medieval myth, part grounded history, and maybe, just maybe, the spiritual successor to The Witcher fans had been craving. Whether the rumors were true didn't matter. What mattered was what they represented, a glimmer of hope in an industry that had started to feel hollow. Cavill's name became shorthand for something rare: authenticity. Actors promoted blockbusters, Cavill championed storytelling. Studios measured engagement, Cavill measured sincerity. He wasn't chasing roles anymore, roles were chasing him. Even directors who'd once dismissed fan culture began quietly admitting that maybe Cavill had a point. Maybe the audience wasn't the problem. Maybe they just stopped listening. In interviews, Cavill kept his trademark composure. When asked about the controversy, he smiled softly and said, "Stories belong to the people who love them. We just bring them to life." That one line spread everywhere. It didn't sound rehearsed or branded, it sounded real. People clipped it, quoted it, turned it into motivational edits with cinematic music. To fans, it wasn't just Henry Cavill the actor anymore, it was Henry Cavill the ideal, the one who stood for creative truth in an age of shortcuts. Then came the moment that cemented his legacy. At a fan event months later, a young writer asked him what advice he'd give to anyone trying to tell their own story. Cavill paused for a moment and said, "Don't write what will trend, write what will last." The room erupted. That quote alone became a rallying cry across social media, appearing in comment sections, on fan art, even on t-shirts. It wasn't a PR slogan, it was a principle. Meanwhile, whispers about The Last Kingdoms only grew louder. Some insiders claimed Cavill was assembling a small creative team, writers who shared his obsession with world building, artists who valued accuracy over algorithm,
Others said major streamers were already making offers, but Cavill wasn't rushing. He's building something the right way, one anonymous source said. He's playing the long game.
And that's when the narrative truly shifted. Cavill was no longer the man who quit The Witcher. He was the man who rebuilt his destiny, the actor who turned frustration into creation, the fan who became the visionary. His departure, once seen as defeat, was now viewed as evolution, the point where one story ended so another could begin, written on his own terms. To millions watching, it felt like poetic justice. Hollywood had mocked fans. Cavill made them matter again. Studios had prioritized trends. Cavill prioritized truth. And whether The Last Kingdoms ever releases or not, his influence has already reshaped the conversation. Writers now cite him as proof that integrity can be marketable. Fans use his story as a rallying cry to demand better from an industry that too often settles for less. Because while Hollywood keeps chasing algorithms, Henry Cavill is chasing legacy. And maybe that's the real twist. The man who played a monster hunter became something rarer, a truth hunter. Someone who believes that the future of storytelling doesn't belong to the corporations that own the rights, but to the fans who remember why those stories mattered in the first place. And as the screen fades to black, one thought lingers. Henry Cavill didn't walk away from The Witcher. He walked toward something timeless. In the end, South Park might have started the joke, but Henry Cavill delivered the punchline, and it landed with truth. What began as a meme became a movement, a reminder that stories built with care can outlast corporate strategy. Cavill didn't just walk away from The Witcher, he walked toward something bigger, authenticity. And maybe that's why his legend keeps growing, because in a world full of noise, sometimes silence says everything.